Welcome everybody to episode 3 of Mark Out of 10, a wrestling podcast where opinions mean everything and nothing at the same time. After the clues on our Twitter, I can reveal that this week's episode will focus on our top 10 tag teams in wrestling. Whether they're multiple-time tag team champs, two singles competitors thrust together, or whether their promos make you feel something, you'll hear justifications as to why they're in our top 10. So who are we? Well, I'm your bald-bearded, beautiful bastard Shields, and getting the hot tag is my co-host, the man who would love nothing more than to no-sell a Young Buck superkick, the housewife's favourite heel, Hoxie. How are we doing, Hoxie?
I'm really good, mate. I'm even better after that unbelievable entrance. That's I'll take that, mate. Fair play.
It's getting better, right? It's getting better every time.
Taking the hot tag.
That's
I like what you did there.
Let's see what I did there.
So, yeah, mate. Tag teams. What are you saying?
Tag teams. Well, it had to be done, right? I mean, it's a...
Yeah.
And you were saying that this has probably been your most difficult week so far.
There was, at one point earlier on today, while we're recording this, there was 19 on my list. So I've had to whittle it down from 19 to 10, obviously with the old honourable mention. I knew straight away what the honourable mention was going to be as soon as we decided what to do. So I'm really excited. And do you know, we might call it the shake moment or the chic moment or whatever, like the left field. This will probably be my first chic moment, I would imagine.
Nice.
So yeah, we'll drop a little teaser for that for later on. But dude, I'm really excited. I'm really excited for it. But it's been so hard. Like I was making all my notes. Like yesterday and earlier on today. And when I was like making the notes on a few stuff that I knew was going to be in there, I was like, I'm going to take this out. I've like scribbled out like there's like 4 pages on my note all scribbled out. Like, no, I'm going to start again. It's crazy. It's been really good though. It's been good fun. You don't realize, like, obviously we're wrestling fans and we've got our favorites and stuff, but when you're making a list of stuff and you write down what could go on that list, you forget how much good stuff you're talking about. It's crazy. This has been not even close. It's been the hardest one, definitely.
For me, it's the opposite side. I think there's probably reasons why I found it not easy, but definitely not as hard as the other two. Especially last week's episode of like the most overrated, I thought was really difficult just because there's so many people that could have been on the list. But that's by the by. Cool, but before we get started, I just want to thank everyone who's listened to, shared, liked, and followed the first 2 episodes of Mark Out of 10. It is greatly appreciated. As we mentioned in previous podcasts, you can email the podcast at wrestlemark10@gmail.com to give your thoughts, your opinions on our list, and also future topics for us to discuss as well. We have got a list of stuff, but if you can think of something that you want to hear us talk about, then by all means email us at wrestlemark10@gmail.com. We've also got our Twitter at @mark_out of10 that you can tweet at. We've got our YouTube channel that you can watch and also comment on as well. And also, just to help the podcast grow a little bit, make sure you do share the podcast as well. Share it to at least one person that you know, someone that wants to hear me and Hoxie talk about all things wrestling. Speaking of comments, one of our YouTube subs, actually, Paxam Plays, commented on episode 2. So we're just going to take a minute, again, indulge me just for a minute or so. Paxam says, this was an absolutely fantastic episode. That's a big pat in the back for us there, Hoxie, I think. This was an absolutely fantastic episode. I think you should reveal the next episode's top 10 at the end of the current one so that listeners can prepare their own and compare while listening. Because I would now love to give mine, but I feel like I could be influenced by what I just listened to you guys. Fair enough. Also, Hoxie, how can you call Randy Orton boring but rate John Cena? It's absolutely insane. Well, thanks to Paxam. I couldn't agree more. Randy Orton being number 1 of most overrated is a ridiculous thing. So Hoxie, me and Hoxie talked about it, and I think because of the feedback of Sam, and we've had this discussion, just trying to see what fits in terms of the podcast, we will reveal the topic of the next one at the end of this episode. So hang on to the very end to find out what we'll be talking about next week.
Happy little change in tack. Yeah, little change. But like I said, this is as new for us than it is for anyone. So we're still learning. We're still taking on board all the sort of comments and stuff. And I can see why. And yeah, I think it's cool. We'll definitely go down that route. Let everybody get involved a little bit more, right? Good
Yeah,
fun.
100%. Yeah, we want to hear your list as well. So, what I will say is we are also getting a website as well. So all the podcasts will eventually be embedded into the website. We're going to put like maybe a letter corner or an email corner. So any like stuff that you send in to us, we'll probably put in there so it's archived properly, so everybody can read. We can't obviously, if this podcast like launches to the moon, we might not be able to put everything on there, but we will do it because we have had a few emails in as well. So thank you to everybody once again.
It's been cool. We get some emails and read what people have sort of took time out of their busy days to like send us some stuff. It's really nice. People taking their time out of their day to listen to us, which is awesome.
It's crazy.
Top 50% of podcasts or wrestling podcasts or whatever.
Yeah, so I was looking at it's mental. I was looking at the sort of stats for podcasts because that's the life I lead, and apparently if like you have podcasts that are hitting like 32 listens or 32 downloads or whatever, you're in like the top 50% of all podcasts in the world, which is mental. So yeah, we're fast approaching 100 downloads, which is quite cool. Over 2 episodes, so hopefully episode 3 will get us over the mark. But yes, once again, just thank you to everybody that is listening. It is greatly appreciated.
I love it. I love just the fact people like, I'll get like a random message like, oh, what? Danny Barr, you put such and such on your list, or we had there was a discussion in one of the group chats, one of the wrestling guys group chats about JBL the other day. But you putting JBL on there is just ridiculous, in my opinion. There we go. But I just love it. Love like random messages. Oh, that was so good, or I don't agree with that, or agree with this, or like it's brilliant. But it's all about the justification, right?
100%.
All about the justification.
And like I say, everybody's got their opinion. It is great. Right, okay, but before we get started on our lists, big wrestling news of the week, and it was Tony Khan revealed that there was going to be a particular gift for Sting. So Sting obviously announced his retirement. We talked about that in episode 1, and the gift was revealed, and it was revealed then it was none other than Space Mountain himself. It was the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Now, Hoxie, we both love Ric Flair. Yeah, one of the best to ever do it. Potentially the best to ever do it. But
1A.
Yeah, I've got concerns about this. I don't know about you. What's your thoughts about Sting's gift being the Nature Boy?
It's going to end up with him being in the ring again, isn't it? Basically, I don't want to see it. Flair for me. You ask me on most days, at most times, he's my favorite wrestler. Just the business was incredible. The matches he had, the way he lived, he was him. You know what I mean? Just incredible talent, incredible on the mic. We know all that sort of stuff, but just stop it. Stop, please. I don't want to see you. I mean, he had the match with Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, didn't he? Him and Andrade.
Yeah,
the tag match that was meant to be his retirement matches. He retired on his own terms in this match or whatever. He was like faking a heart attack in the match, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Which is just,
it's cool.
Just wrong. It's not cool. No, not cool at all. I don't want him to. I don't want him to come back. And he struggled. And it was horrible to watch. I got amazing term, secondhand embarrassment. Like I couldn't watch it properly. It was just hard to watch. And yeah, I don't want to see it again. He's going to end up dying. He's going to be dead. He's going to end up dying in the ring.
Yeah, it's like
there's going to be a big risk of that happening. It's just not cool.
It's just not good at all. Yeah, I've got big concerns. Like I say, I agree with you. I think it's ultimately going to end up with him being in the ring, and I call it sort of the Andrade tag team match with Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. I called that like car crash wrestling. It was just, you didn't want to watch it, but you just couldn't take your eyes off it at the same time. And it was just, it's just horrific. And I mean, let's be honest, he should have retired after the Shawn Michaels match at WrestleMania. That was the perfect match to end.
Couldn't have got better than that. Couldn't have got better than that.
It was only going to go on the downhill. I mean, everything from him expecting the Sweet Chin Music to the Shawn Michaels "I Love You, I'm Sorry," it was just the perfect way to end such a brilliant career. And don't get me wrong, the Jay Lethal sort of carried him through that match because Jay Lethal is like different gravy. He's so good,
incredible.
Again, it's passable in terms of ending it in his own terms. Like say the whole faking a heart attack in the middle of the ring is just really bad taste. wasn't nice at all. And I agree with you. I think it could potentially be the death of Ric Flair in the ring. And do I know something?
Yeah.
The really sad thing? I think that's what he wants.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like I just
going down in battle, the Viking death sort of thing. Just
the
down
real
in
life, the
ring.
wrestler. You know that's what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
You know, it's
Randy the Ram.
yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, big
Randy Rick.
concerns. Randy Rick. Yeah, absolutely.
So he's already. Rumors are, even before he came out of on AEW, he's been working out in the gym a lot. Like, so I don't know whether that's just because obviously he's had his health issues and stuff like that. I don't know whether that's just to try and help keep him a little bit more healthy, but he's been. Rumors are he's been hitting it really hard. So I just don't know. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Flair and Sting in Sting's last match. Like if you were Sting, you would want to go out on a high, right? You'd want to have that amazing match or as good of match as you can possibly get now. You're not going to get that with Flair in your corner wrestling fucking FTR or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It
because
just no.
Sting can still go, you know, in terms of, granted, not as much as he used to, but, you know, he can still put on a decent match. You know, what he's done in AEW is nothing short, considering he was supposed to be, like, medically retired after, like, what happened in WWE, you know, with Seth Rollins and stuff. But, yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, I think we could have had 100 guesses in episode 1 in terms of who is Ric Flair's last match going to be. Who's Sting's last match going to be, and it was never going to be Ric Flair. It never would have entered my head. And you know, for all the flaws of Ric Flair in terms of why are you doing it, shame on Tony Khan as well. You know, if that is the ultimate, shame on him, because you know that's nothing more than him just trying to draw in ratings. Because if he truly does like the business and loves the business as he says he does, then he wouldn't want two legends that are Ric Flair and Sting to go out like that, and it's just sickening. And you know, this is another reason why he was on my list last week. You know, it's just not cool. Just not cool.
No,
man.
It's not cool at all. I think it's another T-shirt, mate. Not cool.
Just not cool.
But, it's just not cool, man. But yeah, I can't agree anymore. It's just don't. It hurts me, pains me.
Yeah,
really, really pains me deep down. I like to see Flair on my TV screen. Like if you cut a Flairish kind of promo or whatever, then that's fine. Like I like to see him pop up every now and again, but I don't want to see him in the ring. I don't want to see
that cheap
him
pop, though, right? That's what you want. You want to hear the woo, but
yeah, you definitely want to hear the woo. Yeah.
But yeah, so guys listening, what do you think? Do you want to see Ric Flair in a match? I mean, we're only speculating. You know, it may very well be he's just in Sting's corner, whatever the case may be. I mean, this could be a perfect foil for Darby Allin to turn heel. You know, he could attack Ric Flair, potentially. And then we've got this sort of Sting-Darby Allin final match. I don't know. And then we'll wait and see. We will wait and see.
Interesting. I still don't think...
No, I
still don't think he can be a credible heel. He can't. However... We will find out. That's the thing. Like we have this. Obviously, we've said the top 10. Everyone's got their own opinions and stuff. And I love trying to work out what's going to happen and different ways it can happen, different outcomes, different storylines, different plots. What's going to happen here? Is he going to do that? Is he going to do this? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Love it.
I think the only thing we can agree on that Tony Khan's going to fuck it up, but that's just my opinion. But
yeah, there's a track record, isn't there? There's a high chance.
100%. Okay, so that is our major news story within the business. Let's get started on this list though, Hoxie. Okay, we're going to list our top 10 tag teams. Now, for me, when I was putting mine together, I felt in a really difficult position to do this. I found it quite easy, but at the same time, it was quite difficult. That's a contradiction in terms, I know, Shields, but now, the reason why I think that is because for a large part of our sort of wrestling fandom, tag team wrestling, especially in the major promotions, was really sort of disrespected, and it was like an afterthought. It wasn't thought of as being really important.
The ginger stepchild of wrestling, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, no soul. But yeah, so
nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a few like modern day tag teams, we'll call it. Like I'll say that on my list, but I had to properly delve into like sort of the history books and the clips and stuff of matches we watched in the past, and that's how I came out with my top 10. So yeah, I think we just get fired straight into it. Are you ready, Hoxie?
Are you ready?
I'm
I'm
born
more
ready,
than ready,
mate. I'm
mate.
born ready.
Yes, let's go.
Who wants to go first, me or you?
You go first, mate. You go
Okay.
first. Age before beauty and all
Age
that
before.
malarkey.
Okay. So my number 10 of the top 10 tag teams are the Freebirds. So Michael P.S. Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts. And simply put on there because of the impact they've had in wrestling due to like the Freebird rule, the stuff that they came up with, yeah. So if you don't know what the Freebird rule is, it's when a wrestling faction or stable with more than 2 members win the tag team titles, and the people that can defend the title can interchange, essentially, right? So not just the Freebird rule. I mean, if you look back over time, like they did have major feuds, and they were properly over as well as babyfaces. Yeah, I mean, you had them in NWA in '82 with Stan Hansen and Ollie Anderson. Then they went to like World Class Championship Wrestling, and they had the feud, I would say, in probably the Freebirds' career against the Von Erichs.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, it's down to just generally the Freebird rule, and that impact is seen, and you can look through sort of wrestling history in terms of the different teams that have used the Freebird rule. You had the Russians in JCP, you had Demolition, you had the Heavenly Bodies, and that's from JCP, that's from Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and then you've got the modern day wrestling factions as well that use the Freebird rule. You've got the Wyatts, you had the New Day, and probably most recently the Undisputed Era as well, Adam Cole, Kyle Riley, stuff like that in NXT. I just think it's testament to the sort of impact that the Freebirds had on tag team wrestling and wrestling in the whole, because as I say, they were so over in the territories they were in. So yeah, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet with the Freebirds, but yeah, they're my number 10 for top tag teams.
Bad Street, Atlanta, GA. Bad Street in the whole USA. Bad Street, nasty and hot. The further down the block you went, the better it got.
DMCA, man, DMCA.
Right, so good. So good. I will let you into something now.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't on my list.
Right.
But they were on that massive list
Yeah.
that I had to whittle away through no real reason apart from the fact that a lot of the pieces sort of mean more to me. You can't deny what they did to the business.
Yeah.
It did for the business. Michael Hayes is still in the WWE now. That's how much of a big deal this guy is and has been forever. Terry Gordy was one of the best to ever put on a pair of boots until he had his issue on the plane. Poor bugger.
Yeah.
Like 19 years old or whatever, like running around the territories in Japan, beating the shit out of everybody. It's like Bam Bam Gordy, Jimmy Garvin, everyone, just unbelievable. Great workers in a really good time for the business as well. And that JCP run, like you say, with what they would now was amazing. And they had a really impressive feud with Jerry Lawler and oh my god, the Australian guy, Bill Dundee. In Mid South for Continental. Just they had some barners down there. So good.
I think what's also really important as well, when you think of tag teams and you think of like stables and factions and stuff, it's not just that. You can tell how successful they are by how often they're trying to be reinvented. So you've got like the Freebirds, and I'm sure there's going to be other factions stuff. And it's not just, like I say, I had Michael P.S. Hayes, Terry Gordon, Buddy Roberts as them, but there was that different sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Different, we'll call it variations of the Freebirds. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the same with different tag teams.
Brad Armstrong was in there at one point, I think.
Oh, there you go,
a great worker, so yeah.
So, I think that's testament to how important those tag teams and factions are when they try to remodel them. I mean, like the Horsemen, for example. I mean, the Horsemen, I didn't count them as a tag team. There were a tag team within the Horsemen, which we'll talk about later. But you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. It's like the Horsemen, like
it's a stable. Exactly.
It was different. So Freebirds for me as number 10.
Brilliant. Yes.
Over to you, Mr. Hoxie.
So my number 10 is going the complete sort of flip side of that, but still entrenched in that sort of mindset. I'm going modern. These guys had to get on my list, and they they crept in at number 10 is FTR, the Revival, Dax and Cash. Just unbelievably good. When I've said this before in a past episode, when's all said and done, and we're looking back in like 20, 30 years or whatever at amazing tag teams or the best tag teams ever, these guys will be in the conversation, and they will be in the Mount Rushmore conversation, in my opinion.
Yep.
The reason they're not any higher up is because they've still got that time to go for me, if that makes sense. So I think they're like 10-time tag team champions across. So you got Ring of Honor, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and AAA. Obviously, so that's world championships, if you know what I mean. But obviously, there's countless independent championships that they've held. Just unbelievable workers, unbelievably good storytellers in the ring. Just talking about like instant classic matches. The tag match that they had on Collision with the Bullet Club Gold with Juice and Jay White recently. That's like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's one of the best tag team matches I have seen in my life, and it was on a late night TV show, and they just went out and just made magic happen. You've got those matches with like American Alpha in NXT. That tag match at the NXT Takeover. I can't remember what NXT Takeover it was now, but just amazing. They are the only tag team in history to hold titles in all of those 5 promotions.
Wow.
So NXT, Ring of Honor, WWE, New Japan, AAA. Well, there's the 6 there, but NXT classes as WWE, if you know what I mean. The only tag team in history to do that. Just unbelievable matches. The no flips, just fists. So that that thing that they brought on a few years ago, like that isn't just like a gimmick to them. That is them. That is their the way they think about things. Great minds for the business. Another shout out for another podcast. Dax Harwood done a podcast for a short time with a guy called Matt Coon, which is on Spotify and stuff as well. Wrestling with Dax or something like that.
Yep.
If you are a wrestler and you are involved in wrestling like I am, go out of your way to listen to those those podcasts. Breaks down the psychology of some of his matches, and he picks a favorite match that he's had, that he's watched, and from back in the day or whatever, he'll tell guys to go and watch it. Just an unbelievable mind for business. And Cash, when he's not running around playing cowboy, like he's just as good as Dax as well. So just I love that to get on my list just because of how much I love them, what they do, what they mean to the business. We had a conversation last week about just making they could have made all of the money, these guys with the Bucks could have made all of the money, and they just didn't do it at the right time. I just think they've missed out. They done a dog collar match, like what was that? Sorry,
they're being wasted in AEW.
They've been wasted. Yeah. They have. When they've had the opportunity to do something, they've smashed it out of the park. Some of Dax's singles matches have been incredible. We're talking about tag teams, but if you take one match that what I'm going to try and do as well in these lists is try and pick one of my favorite matches of these people who I'm talking about now. So if I was to take one match from FTR to go out of your way to go and watch that you probably haven't seen, is the Ring of Honor match, the dog collar chain match that they had with the Briscoes. Fuck me, what a match! Just incredible. Just I've listened back to the podcast and I say incredible a lot, so I'm going to try and get a thesaurus out and stop saying it. But just unbelievable. A tag team chain match, dog collar match, whatever you want to call it. There's not very many of them in history anyway. No. But for them to go out on a Ring of Honor show like that, should have been on a WrestleMania or a whatever, you know what I mean, an All In or something like that, a big stadium show. Instead, it was on a Ring of Honor pay per view. But it's just that should have been on a big show. It was an insane match, so good. Just FTR, they had to be on me for me, and they said I got them in at number 10.
Fair
Love
enough.
them.
I mean,
Love
they are on my list as well, so that's later on. I'll sort of re-emphasize the stuff that you said there. But yeah, FTR is different gravy. So yeah, I agree with that
I'm gonna
100%.
I'm gonna get to the end of this list, and I'm gonna wish I put them higher. But just from my 19 to 10, they got in there, and I just stuck with it in the end because I couldn't be bothered to mess around with it so much. So
I
yeah,
can't be bothered.
I was just like, fuck it, damn it, Meg.
Okay, right. So that's your number 10, FTR. Great shout. And my 10 is the Freebirds, like I said. So Hoxie, your number 9.
My number 9 is the Steiner brothers.
Ooh.
Steiners, Scott and Rick. I just think so. When I started watching wrestling when I was a kid, they were like the first things that I can remember watching on the like the pay-per-views that I was watching at the time. Those early '90s WWF pay-per-views. 11 times tag team champions.
Was it 11?
Absolute
Holy shit! Right, okay.
11 times over. There's obviously loads of
Yeah.
WWF, WCW, IWGP tag team champions. They were the first tag team to hold those 3 championships as well. So like the WWF, the WCW, and the first guys to ever do that. Just absolute units, just badasses. Just you wouldn't fuck with them. They're hard hitting. They're stiff. They're snug. They're strong. Just absolute badass. Like badass amateurs as well, coming out of Michigan, like Michigan, whichever one you want to call it. Just that's a whole sort of presentation of them when they came like on the scene in '89. That sort of the gear that they would wear, the headpiece, the amateur wrestling headpiece for
Rick.
Just so good. Like I remember watching them as a kid. There's a lot of this in here, so like it's there's a lot of personal as well as like statistics in here for me, if you know what I mean. It's obviously personal opinion, but these people made me feel and what they make me feel now looking back and all that sort of stuff. So the Steiner brothers just there's a I was watching WrestleMania 9, so the one at Caesar's Palace, and they had a match. I can't remember if it was with, it might have been with Samoans or something, but they cut a promo and they were like, right, we're going to go out there now and kick their asses. So it was a pre-recorded promo that they kind of pass off as obviously just before going through the curtain. And when they walk through the curtain, they've got different coloured gear on to what they were wearing in the promo. I can remember watching it a few months ago and just being like, holy shit, he's got a singlet on. Like, what the fuck? But I just remember them like, just obviously the recliner, the fucking just beating the shit out of everybody who went in there and just being like, holy shit, like, who are these guys? Like, look at the size of fucking Scott Steiner, he's massive, and just like the pit bulls that you're in, I just love it. Yeah, just love it. So the Steiner brothers, number 9, just because of how they make me feel, and they are one of the best tag teams ever. Like you can't sort of deny that. But they got there on the list because of sort of me remembering them fondly from when I was a kid as well, which is what all this is about, right? We got to remember stuff, and what turns us on to wrestling and keeps us there. They were part of it. Yeah.
That's what we said in
brothers.
Every episode, right? Is about, does it make you feel? You know, that's the beauty of wrestling, right? And so yeah, the Steiner brothers aren't on my list, but again, it was one of those ones it's a massive list, but yeah, they just didn't make it for me. Again, I didn't have that same sort of connection to them. Yeah, they were amazing. They, like you say, hard hitting fuckers. And as I talked about JBL last week in terms of, you know, his early work before he was JBL, like Bradshaw, he was a hard hitting guy, and that's the sort of shit I like. It's, you like what you like, right? And it's just so good. Steiners were against the Head Shrinkers at WrestleMania 9. That's who it was.
Head Shrinkers, there you go. Wild Samoans, sorry, there. Yeah. Oh,
cool. Okay, Steiner Brothers, great shout from Hoxie there. So my number 9, I think this is the one that you'll probably shit on, if any of them. For me, it's the New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn.
Amazing. They were the last off my list. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, really?
There. They were the last
it's
ones.
fine.
Yeah, they were the last ones off. That's amazing.
So basically, they were brought together after Their solo runs were a bit shit, right? Yeah, I think they were actually feuding it. They were actually feuding at the time, and they were like, "Do I know something this ain't going to happen?" So let's mash them together. So this is like two solo competitors pushed together, and they transitioned to possibly the most popular tag team of the Attitude Era, the biggest era in modern history. You know, it's an incredible. They won the WWE WWF tag team title 6 times. They joined probably the most talked about faction in the Attitude Era, DX. In terms of their ability, you know, Billy Gunn was a big monster, right? Road Dogg was the guy in the mic. He brilliant on the mic. Let's be honest.
He's good. He slept on as a worker as well.
100%,
big time as a worker. Yep.
You know, people were going on about, but you know, what did they do? It's like, you've got to remember, they were actually put over by Mick Foley and Terry Funk. You know?
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
And granted, they lost the dumpster match at Mania, but the night after, obviously DX got involved and they won the titles back. But you know, what was it Mick Foley says? It's the most polite. Like, I can't even remember. It was something to do with the bump. Mick Foley, he loved the bump in the dumpster where him and Chainsaw Charlie got put in the dumpster, got pushed over the edge, and you know it legitimately hurt them, and that's why the dumpster match happened at Mania. But you know, they were put over big time by two legends in terms of Mick Foley and Terry Funk. So I mean, straight away, you know, that solidifies them for me. You
Says
know,
a lot.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, if you were at high school during the Attitude Era, everybody grown up did the New Age Outlaw shtick. Yeah. Oh, you didn't know? You know, your ass better cut. Right, okay, let's stop that. But, you know, everybody did it. It was either that bit or it was like the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know, the entire thing. Everybody knew it just because they were so cool. And
you can recite it now.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Like 25 years later or whatever.
It's like muscle memory, right? I just think for me, they personified like what a cool tag team were during the Attitude Era. And, you know,
you've nailed it, mate.
And
You've nailed it there.
I think even now they're getting on a bit. You can see Road Dogg hobbling down to the ring, but it still pops the crowd. And you know, we talked about cheap pop before, but it's a cheap pop, but it's a nostalgic pop. And again, it's that how does it make you feel? And I can't help but look like when they're on the screen, it makes me smile. I'm a big Billy Gunn mark as well. I think Billy Gunn's amazing. The stuff he's doing in AEW just now, like it's just so good. Like Scissor Me Daddy Ass is just one of the best things in wrestling just now, and it pains me to say that, but it's so good. And
it's brilliant.
I love Billy Gunn. I love Road Dogg. I just love the New Age Outlaws. When they went to TNA as well, the Voodoo King Mafia and stuff. The whole thing. And they certainly had their ups and downs in terms of their own personal demons, but I think they recovered really well. Billy Gunn was a major proponent of NXT, like the Performance Center. I mean, I just think in terms of tag team wrestling and wrestling impact in general, I don't think you can look much past the New Age Outlaws. I just think they were a lock on my list pretty much from the get-go. It was just depending on how high up they were going to go.
Yeah. We're off to a good start agreeing on this, mate. We haven't... It's, like I said, they were... Like, they could get FTR on here, if you know what I mean, for me.
Yeah.
I can't agree anymore with you. They were so close to being on mine. With all the reasoning. Like Billy Gunn, if he didn't have asthma, he would be the biggest names in wrestling, probably. He's Hulk Hogan size, the height and build. And he can go, he's got an incredible mind for it. He just can't do singles matches because of his asthma. It fucks him up. It's really bad. They tried with him. And they were saying to him, "Oh, what's going on? Why are you having these? What's happening out there?" And they narrowed it down, and he went and got tests and stuff. And it was because he had really bad. He had sports induced asthma.
Oh shit!
So obviously, when he was always in tag teams and stuff all the way through. Like obviously, you would do your bit, but you weren't obviously constant. You tag in, tag out, blah 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 blah. And when they done the singles run, they realized sports induced asthma. So that's what hamstrung him. If he didn't have that, they would have pushed him to the moon. He won King of the Ring, didn't he? 2000 or 99, 2000 or whatever. So
that time.
That's
Love Billy Gunn.
That's the catalyst, isn't it? Yeah.
You know that my favourite gimmick, it wasn't Mr. Ass. Obviously, what he's doing just now is really cool in terms of Daddy Ass, but it was the one Billy Gunn. It was when Tori Wilson, it was on an episode of SmackDown, Tori Wilson introduced him as the one Billy Gunn, and his theme tune for that is just so good. It's like, I love Billy Gunn, man. It's like not quite an Undertaker level marking out for Billy Gunn, but you know, he's my honourable mention. He's my honourable mention. There you go.
Love
so
it.
Yeah, that's my
Love
number
it.
9, the New Age Outlaws.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna
so
fall out over that, mate.
that's cool. Excellent. Number 8 for me are the Rockers, or the Midnight Rockers, however you want to do, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels.
Wow. Okay.
For me, I thought they were the sort of transition from the old school tag team, because they were an old school tag team in terms of who they feuded with, and you know, the teams they actually beat as well, which is mental. And they transitioned from that old school tag team to the bright, vibrant, like sort of high flying young tag teams of like the 90s as we know it. Yeah, that's, as I said, they competed against.
So it's their fault.
Yes. No. I wouldn't go that far. That's potentially later on. They can, like I say, they competed against and they beat some of the best tag teams around ever. You know, Midnight Express. They beat them to win the AWA championships. They beat the Brainbusters, so like Arn and Tully. What was really interesting, I don't know if you know this, they never officially won the WWF title, tag team titles. Do you know the story behind that?
I think I might do. But go on.
So for those that don't know, so basically they don't get recognised as a WWF tag team title, right? They did actually beat the Hart Foundation, okay, in a 2 out of 3 falls match. But what happened is, it was obviously all taped. It was all taped in those days, yeah. And what happened in the match, the top rope actually broke. And so they were fixing it during the taping. And they won the titles. They even defended it. I think they defended it against Paul Roma and Hercules, which were Power and Glory.
Glory.
Yeah. But the win against the Hart Foundation was never ever televised. And the titles actually just got transitioned back to the Hart Foundation. And a lot of folks say that's actually the early beginnings of the issues between Shawn and Bret. Because Shawn was actually blaming Bret for sort of politicking behind the scenes, as Bret is known to have done, in terms of, you know, we can't televise that, it doesn't look good, the ring broke, blah, blah, blah. And the titles went back to the Hart Foundation. So yeah, that's the sort of backstory there. So even though they unofficially, see when Marty Jannetty came back, and was it 2005? Was it?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
See, in one of the promo videos of that, you actually see the Rockers with the belts. You know, celebrating, but that was never televised, so that's one of the reasons. So for me, great tag team.
They could have hid anything back then, because it wasn't all over the place, was it? And like the internet wasn't a thing, so there wasn't like people finding out within 2 minutes on a fucking message board somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Crazy.
Great tag team. Then obviously they went solo, the barbershop incident, you know, Marty sort of fell by the wayside. He's had well-documented issues in his personal life.
Is that what you would call them?
Fun for all the family. And obviously Shawn Michaels became the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and the rest is really history there. Yeah, so for me, the Rockers have to be on like any list of tag teams. There was that sort of transitional tag teams between the old school territory days and what we know as tag team wrestling today.
And he still didn't make it on your list of top champions.
He's going to be on my list of the greatest wrestlers, but in terms of champions, no, he did not. Fuck you, Hoxie. Thanks for bringing that back up.
Yeah, mate, do you know what? They weren't even on my list of 19.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just you didn't think of them, or you just didn't think they were worthy of it?
Just a bit, nah.
Okay.
I could, around at a time, I don't disagree with what you're saying in terms of like that new generation of like different workers, the high spots. There's a spot now. I don't know if this is like an international thought process, but now I would call a spot. I would call the Rockers, which is grab a wrist lock, go to the top, double axe handle on the wrist. wrist lock, tags the other guy goes on the top and does the axe handle on the wrist. Like that's how I learned what it was called. You can call the rockers in a match probably most parts in the UK, and I would imagine everybody would know what it's about. So like they have a lasting sort of impact on the business, really. But I wouldn't. For me, they were just a bit. Yeah, maybe I just didn't get into them like you did. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably what it is. But they did. They weren't even on the 19. Weren't even anywhere near it.
I think it's also, again, it's that thing that I said at the beginning. It's the case of, it's when they try to remodel like tag teams. You had like obviously the Rockers, you had the Midnight Rockers with Sean and Marty, and then you've got the New Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Leaf Cassidy.
Leaf Cassidy.
And
then,
and then
anything with the word new in front of it is always going to be shit, isn't it?
And then was there not one as well? The Newest Rockers?
Oh God, I don't even know. Shit.
I think that was in like 2021, 2022, something like that. It was
the Newest Rockers.
I think so. Google it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure there was. Don't worry, I'll edit this out. I'm sure.
Newest with Marty Jannetty at Crusher Fest.
The Newest Rockers, October 21st, Leaf Cassidy's Alsnos formed the Newest Rockers with the youngster Cal Hero winning the OFE tag team titles. There you go.
Yeah, great belt. Great belt. Historic belt. Historic title.
But anyway, my Rockers are Marty and Shawn Michaels. So yeah, my number 8s. Over to you, Mr. Hawks.
My number 8 is Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, the new Minnesota Wrecking Crew, the Brainbusters, whichever the way you want to call it. 5-time World Tag Team Champions, 2 for JCP, 3 for WWF. They were founding members of the Four Horse. Not forget that. One of the greatest stables in history ever. Not even close. When you look at their history as well, we'll get to how it all finished and what happened in a minute, but they were only active in total for 3 years, and they've had one of the longest lasting sort of impacts on tag team wrestling and on the business, on the industry. Just imagine like what could have happened, what woulda, shoulda, could have been with those guys like still going for all the way through that WCW period into whatever. Like they were only young guys, you know what I mean? Like obviously Arn had his injury, his 90s, but maybe that might not have been the case if they were still tag teaming. You know what I mean? If they were going all the way through, you never know what. Just imagine some of the matches they could have had with some of the guys. Maybe going into that sort of Attitude Era, late WCW time, that Monday Night War, that could have been so good. Such a good finish as well. That the pile driver thing, just this. Oh my God, it's gone. Absolute brain fart, but just an amazing finish. Really, really good finish. Massive legacy on the business. Tully obviously failed that drug test, didn't he? Which is why they had to sort of get out of Dodge, basically. And he did. There's a story that he did sort of manage to renegotiate or sort of get another contract offer about 6-12 months old, like all the dust settled. But he turned them down because it was half of what he was offered, what he was earning before. Like the sort of contract to the downside guarantee, whichever way you want to say it, offered half of what he had before, which is just nuts. But Tully Blanchard, just unbelievable mind for the business. Great with a pair of them, great workers. Arn Anderson will go down as one of the best to ever do it, like the best to ever put on a pair of boots. Like that Minnesota Wrecking Crew sort of rehash was just cool. It's one of the best names for a tag team ever as well. Minnesota Wrecking Crew is just amazing. Just having those unbelievable matches, just the Starcade matches with like the Road Warriors. Obviously the Clash of Championship, they have the big the cage matches and all that sort of stuff with the Four Horsemen. Just amazing matches, really historic matches. They'll definitely go down as two of the best, and one of the best tag teams ever. So for that, they got onto my number 8, definitely.
Can't disagree with you. They're on my list as well, further up. So yeah, I agree.
Perfect. There we go. There we go.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of argument. I mean, the Rockers were obviously like you didn't agree, but at the same time you could understand why. But
Yeah, someone are going to fall out over it. We're not
yeah,
going to fall
exactly.
out over that. I don't think. No.
Not like Randy Orton.
If people want the dirt, fuck. Randy Orton can get in the bin. Get in the bin, Randy.
Oh dear, that's funny. Okay, you're number 7. I think we're on, right?
Yes, number 7. Lucky number. My number 7. So there is. I don't know if you can hear that. That's me. And the pages on my notes. We've got 7, 6, and 5. I nearly broke the rules doing this, Shields. Okay, I nearly put 7, 6, and 5 as like one number, but then I thought, no, I can't do that. We're only 3. This is the 3rd episode. I can't be going off piste and breaking the rules and getting into trouble already. So I haven't. So I've had to do them all separately. When I say the name of number 7, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do 5 in your head automatically.
Yep.
Number 7 for me is the Dudleys, the Dudley
Okay.
Boys.
Fair enough.
Bubba Ray, Devon. 23 times tag champions across numerous, and that's recognized world tag championships over numerous promotions. And I know someone will moan with it. They lost it 24 times, didn't they? Like, fuck off. Like, to be even be in that mix is just absolutely
Insane.
unbelievable. Yeah. Obviously, ECW originals, that whole Dudleyville with like the Sign Guy and Spike and just unbelievable stuff. They sort of set the precedent for that ECW sort of mantra and that world in which they live in. So they just set the precedent for that amazing sort of like ECW mental, like just craziness was just amazing to see. Obviously, they went on to just do mega things. They're the only in history, and this is a big list, so just bear with me. They're the only team in history to win the WWF, the WWE, WCW, the ECW, NWA, the TNA, IWGP Tag Team Championships, and they won the All Japan Pro Wrestling Tag Determination League as well.
Jesus.
It's basically every promotion that's ever meant anything ever. The only ones really there that they haven't done is like AAA and CMLL. But I'm pretty sure they would have done some stuff down there. But like, it's just 7 different championships and the All Japan Pro Wrestling Tag Determination League. Obviously, they've left a legacy of. Now, they could be argued good or bad for this. The TLC matches, those matches that they had at those WrestleManias and stuff with the other guys. Hall of Famers, obviously WWE Hall of Famers. Just they were so over, so over. Like the WhatsApp, like for the headbutt and Devon get the tables, just all that sort of stuff. Like the power bombing Mae Young through a table. Obviously, I don't know if they were still together, but Buddy Ray power bombed Dixie Carter, didn't he? Through a table like TNA. Someone who deserved to be power bombed through a table. It was probably her, bless her. Just amazing guys, amazing workers, amazing mind for the business. Left one of the biggest stamps on tag team wrestling ever with the other guys who they'd done it with. Just amazing stuff. And like singles runs, I mean, Buddy Ray went on to be a world champ. TNA, just amazing gimmick, amazing character, amazing work with that world championship run. Just what they've done for all of the stuff, all their championships, the journey that they had through wrestling, they list for me number 7.
It was also like their finish as well was one of the most protected finishes in wrestling. Not a lot of people know it, and like nobody once they hit the 3D, no one kicked out of it. I mean, you could get the pin interrupted by the tag team partner and stuff, but they didn't kick out. Do you know who was the first to kick out the 3D from the Dudleys?
Oh, I love a fact. Come on, give it to me. Give it to me.
It was the Motor City Machine Guns in TNA.
Wow. Yep. They had that best of 7 run, didn't they? With Machine Guns, they had 7 matches.
the thing is, it
I forgot
meant
about
something
that.
as well. It meant something as well.
Oh shit! Yeah,
Because
Fuck
what they
yeah.
did,
Yeah.
they then moved it in terms of that was the reason why Team 3D split, because Bubba Ray or Bully Ray blamed Devon for fucking up the move, and then that's why
Amazing.
they split. And then obviously Aces and Eights happened as well, and it just all escalated from there. But I think there was a time, I think it was on the Stone Cold podcast where Bubba Ray was on it, and they were talking about, I think they were feuding with the Brothers of Destruction, Taker and Kane, and I think Bully Ray and Devon were going to hit the 3D, and Taker was going to kick out of it, but Taker actually went, no, that's like your protected finish, don't do it. And he didn't want to kick out of it. I'm sure that's what it is. Again, the listeners will be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that was in the Stone Cold podcast that story came out. So yeah, crazy.
That's incredible. It's incredible, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get Taker being like, nah, you're all right. Amazing. Oh, that's a great story. That's bang on. I love that.
Oh, I love it.
it.
So Dudley's great shout.
I forgot about that MCM tag sort of a feud that they had. Go out and watch some of those matches. That best of 7. Brilliant. Yep.
Like Motor City Machine Guns aren't on my list, to be fair, but it's like,
No,
to be fair, I actually forgot about them.
There was 2 TNA tag teams that were on my massive list, and I took both of them off. And the Motor City Machine Guns weren't one of them, but they nearly went on the list. There was 2 TNA tag teams that didn't make it, and I'm a little bit annoyed that I didn't put the one on. But however,
you put the Young Bucks on, did you? See if Young Bucks are number 1, Hawks, they'll just find you and swiftly boot you in the stones.
I was working last week when we were slagging them off. So yeah, number 1. Sorry guys.
It was me all along, Austin.
Good shit.
All right, okay. Moving swiftly on before we get sued. Okay, so my number 7, and I'm still sticking with old school tag team, and it's going to be the original Hart Foundation, Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, Jim the Anvil, with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart as well. And I think the reason why they're on number 7 is just I felt like they had to follow on from like where the Rockers were. Where they're Sean, there's always going to be the talk about Bret. Yeah. And that's why they're just slightly ahead of the Rockers. 2 of them, brothers-in-law, trained in the Hart Dungeon by Stu. Originally, again, it was a sort of a circumstance thing as to why they started tag teaming together, because Bret was originally going to be given this like really crappy cowboy gimmick, and he refused it. Shock horror. And he was close to actually getting booted out, and he actually said, I want to team with Jim, and and again, the rest is history, as they say. Yeah, so Bret, obviously the technician, the excellence of execution at that stage, the early stages, and Jim was the powerhouse. Yeah, he was a big boy. The Anvil,
big bastard,
a big bastard.
Big bastard.
The thing is, with the Hart Foundation, they're great heels, like really good heels. Everybody thinks they were like really good baby faces, but I think their heel work was even better.
Yeah.
Some of the best tag team matches, again, if you haven't seen them, I think they're on YouTube as well, with against the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and Dynamite Kid. Just insane tag team matches. And again, it comes down to this whole longevity thing. The Hart Foundation, there's so many varieties of the Hart Foundation. You've got, obviously, Bret, Jim, and Jimmy Hart. You've got the new Hart Foundation, which was Owen and Jim, and then you had the Hart Foundation stable, which included like Brian Pillman, and then eventually Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, as well. I think all those varieties of those different Hart Foundations, it stem from that original tag team. So again, purely down to the sort of the impact over the long term in the wrestling business, I think the Hart Foundation has got to be on there for me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, mate. Can't disagree. They were one of the ones that I took off. They were one of the ones that I took off, and just I prefer Bret Hart more than I prefer the Hart Foundation. Obviously, they did have that stable, didn't they? Sort of later on, that sort of 1997 is my favorite year in wrestling, and the Hart Foundation were a massive proponent of that. But when it comes to the tag team, they were, they weren't up there for me, but they were on. That's fair. They were on the big list, mate. Let's put it that way.
They've got.
They would be getting a Christmas card off me, but they wouldn't be getting a present. Put it that way.
I think what you've got to do as well with tag teams, and again, correct, you know this as a wrestler. It's like right now you have like the little guy, like the technician, and you've got the big fucking bruiser, right? And I think they epitomise like tag team wrestling at that time. You know, the Rockers were very, very similar. They're both very technical, very quicker than a hiccup, as good old GR would
Just
say.
catch can.
So yeah, I think they sort of epitomise what a tag team probably should be like in terms of technician guy and a big hitter, and I think that's what a lot of teams are actually modelling themselves on just now. So yeah.
Yep.
Cool. My number 6, and we're going proper old school, probably the best heel tag team of all time. And I'm going with Midnight Express. Dennis Condrey and Bob Eaton, managed with good old Jim Cornette. Mentioned him a couple of times. Definitely the best heel of the 80s, and like I say, probably of all time. I can't think of anybody that got as much heat as Midnight Express. Now, I'm only sad that I wasn't alive or old enough to sort of hear the sort of heat that they could get. But obviously, you can learn so much from videos and stuff that you can see. I think collectively across all the Midnight Expresses, they won like 53. So obviously, Dennis Condrey and Bob Eaton didn't win 53, but I think the Midnight Express as an entity did win something like stupid across like all the different territories. And I would probably argue that, again, you can put something in here. I would say probably the best tag team feud of all time with the Rock and Roll Express. I can't think of anybody. In terms of longevity of the feud as well, I think the Midnight versus the Rock and Roll, I just don't think you can sort of beat that in terms of long-term rivalry. That's proper long-term booking, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
might talk about this soon.
Mentioned it in the last podcast, like we were talking about the Bucks. Jim Cornette knows tag team wrestling. It's simply down to like he's worked with the Midnight Express. I think he was the perfect heel manager for Midnight. He again, for all his flaws, he knows tag team wrestling. He knows wrestling. He's got a great mind for the business, and he's not scared to take a bump. Yeah, it's like back in the day, he was taking bumps left, right, and center. They had matches with Road Warriors, and the biggest bump that Jim Cornette did was, and he talks about himself, was the scaffolding match at Starrcade 86. You know, he got a legitimate knee injury because he was basically huckled off a massive scaffolding, and he was supposed to be caught at the bottom, and he didn't get cut, and he got fucked. So yeah, for me, Midnight Express, I think when you talk about tag teams, motherfucker, goddamn. Yeah, they've got to be on the list. Midnight Express for me.
Aye. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay, cool.
Definitely. We'll revisit it 100%.
Cool.
Totally.
Your number 6, Hoxie, before we talk about...
number 6. So, following on, obviously, so there's the next two after this are all close together. For me, the number 6 is the Hardy Boys. Jeff and Matt, 12 times champions, WWE, what's WWF, TNA, Ring of Honor as well. You forget about the Ring of Honor run. Yeah. They're the only ones to have ever held the Ring of Honor and the TNA at the same time. It's a little fact for you. Wow. Stupidly over. Unbelievably over. Just mental. Like, Jeff was like, obviously, just everybody loved Jeff. Like, Matt he's always been secondary to Jeff with stuff. Just everybody loved him. The women, every time he used to take the top off before he used to do the swanton, you could just hear it squealing. It was mental. They were on top. All these guys we're going to talk about were on top in like that massive boom period for wrestling.
Yeah.
They were like, you talk about the top singles guys. You've got your Stone Colds and the Rocks and the Takers and the Reigns or whatever. Like, when you talk about actual talents or like names on a page, these guys were some of the top names on that card every single time. Unbelievable matches. Like, obviously the TLC match. This is a running theme, but they just had some incredible matches. Royal Rumble. 2000 Madison Square Garden, that match with the Dudleys. Just yeah, it's just like fond memories of running back from school after recorded it on Channel 4 the night before, and just running back to watch it and seeing Jeff take that swanton through the tables on Bully Ray, like through the tables and stuff. Just so cool. Also the comeback at WrestleMania 35. Obviously you've got that tag match, like 4-way tag match thing, in the New Day come out, and we all think, oh, it's going to be the New Day, it's going to be the fourth team, blah blah blah, and they cut the whole who promo, and the hits. Just like, I can remember watching it and like jumping up off my sofa, like, oh my god, like I can remember my missus like looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, the fucking Hardy Boys! It's like losing my mind, like I was fucking 12 again. Just so good.
Were you doing the Jeff Hardy
dance? Yeah, I was doing the dance. I don't give a fuck, mate. I was doing the dance. Just do that. Just the music coming out. Just so good. So good. And then obviously you look at their singles runs as well. Like obviously the stuff Jeff went on to do. Like the call, the Jim Ross call with the ladder match that you had with the Undertaker, like climb the ladder, kid, make yourself famous. Like, just so good. Like the start of that transition into that single star. Obviously, all the title runs he did. We're not going to talk about the personal bar, but that obviously the V2 and the V3, like getting sacked, and just the output. He was one of the first, probably one of the first guys that the internet got back into wrestling after he got released. He was like that groundswell of like fans and people in the crowds with the signs and chanting in the crowds and on the message boards and that sort of stuff. A great mind for the business. He's completely lost it now, but he did have at one point. So yeah, number 6, the Hardy Boys. Just my memories of really, really getting into wrestling. You talked about New Age Outlaws earlier on, like that, like, oh, just sitting with your mates, staying up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning watching pay-per-views like on Sky. We remember these guys to come out to see what mad shit they're gonna do. Just like watching Raw around your mate Sky. Like, I didn't have Sky when I was a kid. I didn't get Sky until like really later on. Just fond memories of being with my mates watching these guys, and yeah, it was good feels, and yeah, they've got to be number 6.
Yeah, I can't disagree. It's like, for everybody that does the you didn't know for the New Age Outlaws, if you didn't do the Hardy Boys, like, you know, the like with the fingers and stuff, like, you weren't a wrestler.
Or the leg drop and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just I mean, they appear later on in mine as well. So yeah, I'll just take a break there. So that's fine.
Cool.
Okay, so that's us got from 10 to 6. What we do now is, for those that haven't listened before, if you haven't listened, make sure you go back and listen to the episodes 1 and 2. We take a break in our list and we talk about something in the wrestling industry that we think was a mistake, probably something that shouldn't have happened, and we call it the Royal Fumble.
Royal Fumble.
Okay, Hoxie, let us know, what is this week's Royal Fumble?
This week's Royal Fumble is the ending of the Undertaker's streak. The streak, professional wrestling. The ending of that.
They shouldn't have fucking touched it.
There isn't. Should we just finish the session there? Like, it's just.
If they were going to do it,
go on.
Sorry to interrupt you. Right?
No, you go on.
For me, if they were going to do it, they didn't need to do it to Brock Lesnar. Now, I understand it's like, well, who else is a legitimate threat to Taker? And Brock Lesnar probably at that time was the only threat to The Undertaker, the only believable threat to The Undertaker, right? And I think that goes without saying, because he is an absolute animal. But Brock didn't need the rub. He didn't need the rub of the streak. You know, he was already over. Everybody knows how much of a badass he is. He didn't need to. And so for me, yeah, it's just a major, major flaw. And everybody goes, oh, you know, Taker wants to give back. And yeah, he does, and it was just a bad decision. I think what made it worse is obviously Roman then beat him as well. Was it the year after or the year after?
The year after.
It's
Yeah.
like, and I feel a bit sorry for Roman because if they wanted to push him, it just diluted down Roman's victory over Taker because, oh, right, okay, Taker's lost again.
It's pissed everybody off even more. We were sick of him already then getting shoved down our throats. So
yeah, just for me, Brock didn't need the rub for me.
Tell you what we'll do, just because I know there'll be people who listen to this. I know there's people who have listened to the previous shows who aren't massive, huge wrestling fans. So what we'll do is we'll explain what the streak was. So the streak was 21-0 was the Undertaker streak at WrestleMania. So for 21 years at WrestleMania, he basically won every match. So Jimmy Snuka, Jake Roberts, Giant Gonzalez, King Kong Bundy, Diesel, Psycho Sid, Kane, Big Boss Man, Triple H, Ric Flair, A-Train and The Big Show. That was just a horrible, horrible mess.
That was supposed to be a tag team match though, right?
It was, yeah, with that Australian guy.
Nathan Jones, yeah.
Nathan Jones, yeah. Kane, Randy Orton, Mark Henry, Battage, Shawn Michaels twice, Triple H twice, and then CM Punk. So we got to WrestleMania 30, which was 2014, and the match was against Brock Lesnar. They sort of laid the feud for this, didn't they? A UFC event. Remember this?
Yep.
So
Velasquez.
Cain Velasquez, yeah, he lost the title UFC. Undertaker, like, what did he say?
You want to do it?
It's really, you want to do it. That's it. It was really shit, weren't it? Just yeah, and that was it. That was basically the start of it. So there was only a couple of people, like within WWE that actually knew it was going to happen. I think it was obviously the two talents, so Brock and Taker, Vince, Paul Heyman, and the ref. They were the only people who knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew it, and it was just such a shit. Brock didn't need it. WWE didn't have to do it. They should have left it well alone. That was like the Undertaker's. The Undertaker has a big legacy.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously we touched on it the week, didn't we? With the champions, bloody whatever. Nothing should have touched it. Nothing should have touched it. That should have been his big thing, his big sort of swan song from the business that he was never beaten at WrestleMania. Would have been an amazing thing. That streak's up there. I still class wrestling as a sport. It sort of strayed from that. Wrestling is a sport for me, and that's got to be up there. One of the biggest streaks in sport for me. Just amazing. I wonder if they. I know they didn't like plan it to be a thing. But I wonder when they sort of got to the point where they were like, "Holy shit, Take! Like you haven't lost at WrestleMania. Like what number did they get to before they fought? Fuck, you know what I mean? Like shit. Was it like whatever? Like I don't know, 13 or 14? Like, oh my god, what's going on here? But yeah, they should never have done it. I can remember watching it. I was in Walkabout in Birmingham on Broad Street, and I've never heard a crowd react to anything apart from somebody dying or whatever. Like I've never heard like any reaction to anything like that. It was just gone from like obviously this party atmosphere with however many people are in this bar. It was busy, really busy, and it was just silent. Like proper, like no one cheered. No one was like like being a dickhead because they were trying to be smart. You know what I mean? Everyone was just like, shit, like, what the fuck just happened? I was like, was that meant to happen? Like, you just people looking around. Like, there's that famous guy, isn't there, in the crowd with just like that wide open face, like
the white t-shirt, just say yes,
yeah. And like everybody in the bar was like that when it happened. It's just mad.
Yeah, again, I agree. It shouldn't have happened. I think the first time it became really recognised as a streak, I think it was your favourite person when it was facing Randy Orton at 21. That's when it first started getting made a big deal. You fucker. But yeah, that's the first time WWE was starting making the streak a big deal, was that particular feud. And there we go. That's a segue like from last week as well. That was another great feud that Randy Orton had with Undertaker as well when Taker came back. Remember the casket going on fire? Sorry, but I digress.
He hasn't had a great feud ever, so boring. Move on. Come on.
Okay, so yes, the Undertaker streak. Do you think that the Undertaker streak ending was the greatest shock in wrestling?
It's got to be one of. You've got to talk about that in the same sort of conversation for me. It's like the screw job, like the Montreal screw job. Like it's up there in terms of like, holy shit, what the fuck's just happened? Like, yeah, it's got to be up there. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything else like that.
I think it's on par. It's probably, I think the genius of Paul Heyman after it as well. I don't know if you've seen the sort of the audience with Paul Heyman when he was like, he then plants the seed. It was like, did Brock go into business for himself? You know, and I just think that's the genius of Heyman. It's just a case of, you know, people probably know that, you know, it was a planned, it was a work, etc. But it's just that little seeded out saying, well, you know, Brock could have went into business for himself because he's just he's the beast incarnate.
Brock can do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah. If you haven't seen that, just like YouTube Paul Heyman, audience with Paul Heyman, like streak ending, and it's just genius. And again, this is another podcast for the future. It's like one of the best ever on the mic, just incredible. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's up there with the sort of Montreal screw job as well in terms of the most shock. I didn't see it coming. I genuinely, because it got to the stage where you're like, Taker's in a match, let's see what cool bits he can do. Is he going to jump over the top rope, blah, 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 and then go in, tombstone, 1, 2, 3. But no, didn't happen. I mean, he got a really bad concussion in that match, right?
He did, like, early on as well.
Early doors,
like, mega early. Yeah, so he wrestled a long time with... There was talk about, like, did he not kick out? Was he meant to have kicked out because he had the concussion and stuff, wasn't there? So, yeah, it's crazy. I've just really quickly looked at the matches after what happened. So it wasn't Reigns straight after. It was Bray Wyatt, Shane McMahon at Hell in a Cell. It was Roman Reigns at 33, which he lost.
Right.
The John Cena at 34, which was just stupid. Like, there was like a fucking 3-minute match, right? Ridiculous. Yeah, and then obviously the Boneyard match. The pre-tape one, AJ Styles.
Great match.
So it was 25-2 he ended up at. It's crazy. Calloway said losing the streak to Reigns would have made a lot more sense for the impact on their respective careers. You can't really argue with that, can you?
No.
To be fair.
Exactly.
But at least we got 2 of the best matches ever with those 2 matches against Shawn Michaels.
I think you've got the 2 of the Shawn Michaels matches and then the follow-up with Triple H as well. I think, again, it's all about long-term storyline, right? And I think that was just the perfect... And the ending of the Triple H one where... Was that Hell in the Cell?
It was Hell in the Cell.
It was Hell in the Cell.
Shawn Michaels as the special guest ref.
That's right. And it was Shawn, Taker and Triple H at the end.
Like holding each other up at the top of the...
I'm not gonna lie to you. There was a tear in my eye when that happened. Because it legit, and it sounds so cliche, but it genuinely was like the end of an era. You know, it's like I still maintain that there's no one really in the WWE now from that point that makes you sort of feel that way. You know, it's like we're both grown-ups, Oxy. I hate to say it, we are grown-ups, but you know, like if you go back when we do like watch-alongs and stuff, and you watch the old school wrestling and stuff, and it puts like a smile on your face. You know, that doesn't happen now. You know, again,
anything, it makes me miserable.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the only one that really puts a smile on my face was probably, again, we hype on about it all the time. MJF, CM Punk. See that feud.
Yeah.
That was just like so old school. It was incredible. MJF, anything he does is just impeccable at the moment, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about MJF in the coming weeks and months because we're going to be here for a long time in Mark Out of 10, guys. That's the plan of action.
We're here for a long time and a good time, guys. Don't you fucking worry about that.
Damn right. Okay, so that is the Royal Fumble for the week. So we're going to head back to the list of the top 10 tag teams. I believe it's me, Hoxie, with my number 5, and it's a team we've already talked about already on your list, and that's Tully and Arn, the Brain Busters, you want to call, when they're managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. like I say, probably more recognised for being a part of, I would probably say, the greatest faction, greatest stable in wrestling, the Four Horsemen. Um, I'm not going to go into the facts and figure. Well, I've got one interesting fact, and I don't know if you know this. Do you know that Tully and Arn never lost a single tag team match on pay per view in WWE, WWF, or NWA? So 2v2. They never lost a single pay per view match. The only time they lost a match on pay per view was at a Survivor Series in 1989, and it was a tag team elimination match. And it was them, Demolition, the Bolsheviks, Los Conquistadors, and the Fabulous Rougeaus.
That's a great stat.
There you
I
go.
love that. I did not find that in my research, by the way. That's a great stat.
So yeah, so
just shows how strong they were, doesn't it?
it's just unbelievable. And I mean, to be fair, like you say, and how many tag team titles was it? The one I didn't write that down actually in my little notes.
They were 5 times overall, so 2 in JCP and 3 times WWF.
You know, it's just for the talent that tag team had. It just shows you don't have to have the titles in order to be over. You know, and exactly. I think that's really key. And yeah, for me, it was a lock in terms of being on the list. Again, a lot of this is, if you ask me tomorrow, the list would probably be totally different in terms of positioning and potentially 1 or 2 people in and out, you know. So yeah, but Tully and Arn, different class, different gravy, and at one point had, again, arguably one of the best managers ever in Bobby the Brain Heenan. So
101A for me.
Yep, 100%.
101A.
Yep. So yeah, there you go. Can't really add much more apart from that interesting tidbit of information. So yes, my number 5 is Tully and Arn. So now over to you, my beautiful friend.
My number 5 it's carrying on from the Dudleys and the Hardys. It's Edge and Christian. You can't have a conversation with any of these individual tag teams without bringing the others up. And like I said, for me, all of this big chunk in the middle, I was going to put all these 3 as like one, but I thought I can't do it because I'll get into trouble. But all 3 of these had to make it on here, and I took some really like big names out me to get these on, but I had to get them on and I'll just reiterate really quickly what I said when I was talking about the Hardys, like for what they make me feel and for what they made me feel and for what they turned me into as just being a fan of wrestling. I started watching wrestling like in the sort of early to mid 90s, but I didn't become like a massive fan of wrestling until this period, like that 90, 98, 97, 98 really took off for me. And they were a big proponent of that. 7-time tag champs. They were fucking over as hell, like as a heel or as a babyface team. Memorable matches, like memorable phrases and stuff, like all these really amazing tag teams, like obviously with the Dudleys would like get the tables and what's up and like all that sort of stuff, like for those of the benefit of flash photography, like the 5 seconds or 3 second pose or just whatever, just incredible stuff, really good fun. You could tell they just loved it. They just loved what they were doing. Obviously, they listen to interviews. They were both just huge fans. They got into wrestling because they love it. They're still going because they love it. That's all they ever wanted to do. And it came across. They were just having fun with everybody, and just the way they presented themselves, like coming in as the Brood was just obviously the way to get them involved. But when they really sort of turned on as like that ENC, like, you know, with the Edge and Christie and that team ENC was just so much fun. The reason they were the top of these 3 is because I love them now more than I love all of the other guys, and I probably love a little bit then more than I loved all the other guys as well. Just look at what they did after as well. I know we're talking about tag teams, but they started as a tag team. They went on to have the pair of them, multiple heavyweight championships, some incredible feuds, some incredible matches. Edge's comeback at Royal Rumble. If we were filming this, I would just show you that the second it pairs, all of the hairs on my arms stand up on end. I can remember where I was. I can remember what I was doing. I can remember exactly every single thing about that moment when he came back. And I still watch it now, and it still makes me cry now. Watching it back, I've seen it 100 times. Just amazing. And yeah, for him to sort of get one last stab at stuff with after his injury, after both of their injuries, really. And you've got to think as well, these guys we talked about Tully and Arn only being on top for 3 years. They were only together for 3 years, from 1998 to 2001, and they split up. So to do all of that stuff in that attitude era period of time, that sort of 98 to 2001, whatever, 2002, so good. So good. Talking about like matches to go and watch, just the WrestleMania 17 TLC match. There isn't much else that you can say. Just go and watch that match. I'm sure people who are going to be listening to this, who are the wrestling fans, would have seen it.
Yep.
If you haven't seen it for a long time, just go back and watch it. If you haven't ever seen it, I'll give you my WWE Network login to go and watch. Like, I don't care. Like, come round my house and we'll put it on. I don't give a shit. We'll probably watch it at some point in the future. Just at pay-per-view, potentially. Just amazing match. It made the WrestleMania 16 match sort of put them like over to like another level.
Yep.
The WrestleMania 7 just immortalized them in the annals of time and in that wrestling world. You can't have a conversation with these last three talents without speaking of each other, and they all had to make it on my list because I just love them all. That's it. Number 5, Edge and Christian.
It's fair enough. I mean, I can't really argue with that. I mean, it pains me to say it, but Edge and Christian didn't make it on the list. And the reason why is I think it's going back to when I was watching WWF, WWE at the time, WWE, and they pissed me off so much as a heel. I think it's still like in that, you know, it's still real to me, damn it. But I love Edge and Christian. The stuff, like you say, the pose, for the benefit of those with flash photography, genius. Like, I agree with you that tables, ladders, and chairs match, I don't think you'll beat it in WrestleMania. The Concerto, yeah, absolutely. And I think this is why every TLC match since, other than probably Becky, Charlotte, and was it Bailey as well? They did a TLC match that was impeccable as well. But no other TLC match really is matched. I don't think they ever will, because it was just so well done. And for me, they don't make my list, but they were under consideration. And there's reasons why, like, people are on the list that you'll see in due course. I love Edge and Christian as like solo competitors. Edge, his career speaks for himself, and I think Christian is possibly one of the most underrated workers ever. And the fact that he didn't get the opportunity in WWE is absolutely shocking.
Do you know why? Do you know why Vince sort of? Do you know why he didn't get the run?
No.
Do you know? So Vince didn't like Christian's face. Now I'm gonna. This is a legit, 100% legit creative idea that Vince McMahon had for Christian before he got rid of him. Okay, he wanted to put, every time Christian was on the camera, he wanted to CGI a blue dot over his head, over his face, so nobody could see his face. That's what Vince McMahon wanted to do to Christian Cage. It's Christian.
They wonder why Vince has been pushed out. That's mental. Like, Christian's working. I just go fuck, you know. Not many things makes me speechless, but that's insane. Christian underrated without a shadow of a doubt. He's working. TNA was amazing, and then obviously
best thing Randy Orton ever did. The best thing that I've ever seen Randy Orton do was have that feud with Christian.
Yep.
For the World Heavyweight Championship. Like,
who did Christian interrupt when he returned to the WWE after TNA?
It was on the ECW brand, wasn't it?
It was
on the ECW brand?
It was.
Is it? Oh, I'm gonna have an aneurysm. Matt Hardy?
Jack Swagger.
Bollocks! What?
And then I'll always remember it was Matt Striker goes, "This moment has become instantly classic." It's so good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Edit that out and we'll go again. Was it Jack Swagger?
Christian's unbelievable. So unfortunately they're not on my list, but I totally agree with you. I think they're on the conversation for any tag team, and yeah, we'll wait and see what happens on my list. Okay, guys, so Edge and Christian, Hoxie's number 5. Hoxie, you're number 4.
My number 4 are the Rock and Roll Express. Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton, one of the greatest tag teams to ever set foot on the planet. They're still going now, pretty much. I know Ricky Morton would probably have a match with anybody now, and they're still probably better than 95% of the tag teams out there as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you think in wrestling, and you look at wrestlers, or you look at teams, whatever, and you look at what over is, okay, you will never be as over the Rock and Roll Express were in that 80s period. Wherever they went, whatever they were doing, the amount I dread to think the amount of ladies in which these guys had beautiful evenings with, strolling down the promenade. Just unbelievably good tag team. That the look with all like the tassel and the tassely gimmicks and the bits hanging off and the bandanas and all that sort of stuff, getting mobbed on the way to the ring by everybody. They couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't go anywhere without just everybody wanting to just touch them. Like it was incredible. And you mentioned earlier on about like some of the feuds in which these guys had. They feuded with everybody, being anybody. Like you look at sort of back in the day, in that Memphis territory, they had guys like obviously like feuds with Randy and Lanny Poffos, like Randy Savage. Obviously the Mid South with the Midnights. We'll talk about that really soon as well. Unbelievable feuds like Koloff and Khrushchev. You got they're coming in, winning the titles and just having these unbelievable runs, matches with. Oh my God! It was the Andersons. It was a match with Arn and. Oh my God! What was the old Anderson? Ollie Anderson.
Ollie Anderson.
Yeah. Just amazing stuff. And they came back 2021, 2022. They had a match with FTR.
Yep.
On an independent show, quote unquote independent show. Just and they can still go. They can still go.
He did the Canadian Destroyer. It's like
he did the Canadian. Yes, he did the Canadian Destroyer. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt as well. It's like my number 4 is also the Rock and Roll Express, by the way. Just so you know.
Okay.
I totally agree with you. 100%. It's just crazy, right? I mean, sorry. Yeah, just keep going.
So they debuted in 1983, and they're still going now. 40 years in wrestling. They'll still be as over like anywhere than they will. Where it's just obviously the stuff they've done in Smoky Mountain, obviously with Jim Cornette's with like the Heavenly Bodies and that, and I've sort of made quick notes of stuff, not the whens and years or whatever, but just the feuds, like notable feuds, and they've just been around forever, and they were a massive impact. When I got into wrestling, fucking hell, 13 years ago, whenever it was, one of the things that I sort of went down the rabbit hole on the Rock and Roll Express, because they go down as some of the greatest workers ever, and one of the best tag teams ever. Some of the stuff that they did back then, like the double drop kick and stuff, was just massive. They'd hit a drop kick and the camera would shake and the mics would fucking like boom out. You know, it's just unreal stuff. One of the best hot tag things that I've ever seen as well is Ricky Morton run over to the heels corner and hip toss Robert Gibson across to his corner, jump back out, tag him, and then come in for the hot tag. So it's just amazing, just amazing stuff. Yeah, I love them. One of the best, like all around. I mean, those sort of just constant face tag teams throughout their career, and yeah, just loved them. Brilliant.
Jerry Lawler that formed them, right, in '83.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then in
So
Memphis.
he like got their look and stuff. Yeah, so big shout out to Jerry Lawler. But yeah, so like you say, the hot tag Morton's probably, but Ricky Morton's probably the greatest seller of all time. You know, in terms of
Yes.
selling. We talk about Dolph Ziggler and
heat.
yeah, Dolph Ziggler is really good. You know, in terms of, but I think that's who he models on in terms of the selling ability of Ricky Morton. Just it's
It
just
makes you
so
feel.
good. Yeah, it's
It
just
makes
so
you feel.
good, so good. And yeah, like I say, they're my number 4 as well. So I just thought it was just different class. They weren't just they were treated like rock stars, absolute superstars, and it's not just a tag team. It was just they transcended the entire industry. It's like no one single tag teams could touch them in terms of the reactions they got. Like you say, what's the old adage? It's like ladies wanted to be with them, men wanted to be them. It's like they were just legends of the business. Like you say, they're still doing the sort of circuit. I don't think they are anymore. I think they've probably came to the end of. I think
Roberts stopped. I know Ricky still does the odd bit. If they're going to take a bump, it'll be Ricky that'll take.
Yeah.
It's one of those sort of things. So yeah.
Rock and Roll Express, gotta love them. And like I say, matches with my earlier one. That's why I had them. If you had the greatest heel tag team with the Midnight, and then you've got the greatest babyface, and like I say, it was possibly the greatest tag team feud ever. And it was just so good. If you haven't seen any of the matches at all, then please look them out.
There will be stuff on the network
from
those guys doing what they were doing, running around the territories and stuff. So yeah, definitely search some stuff out.
Cool, right? So that's number 4 for Hoxie and also me. So it's going on to my number 3, I believe.
Yep.
And my number 3 are those damn Dudleys. Whether they were heels or whether they were baby faces, I just loved them. I think they helped redefine tag team wrestling in terms of, as I said, tag team wrestling was shat on for a long time, and especially in the bigger promotions. And I think the Dudleys throughout their tenure in every company that you can think of, it just made you believe in sort of tag team wrestling again. They were just so good. And like you said, I'm not going to go through all their titles. You've done that already. I mean, the use of the tables as well. If we're talking about Attitude Era, it was so good for the time. Powerbombing women through the tables. Mae Young. It's like just she was. What was it? It's like Mae Young. It was famous. Dudley. Bubba Ray actually came out and said that, like, Mae Young pulled him aside and goes, actually fucking hit me or like treat me like one of the boys or something like that. It's like powerbomb me.
She said if you don't put me through the table properly, I'll come back through the curtain and beat the shit out of you. Basically, like the long and short of it is like, don't fucking hold back. Don't fuck about because I'll beat fuck out of you basically.
And at that time, it was like
built different, mate.
Built different indeed. It was that thing, the power bombing of women through the table. You had Mae Young, you had like Stacey Keeblers, the Tori Wilsons, etc. It's like it wasn't thought of at that time. It was unheard of, and it sounds ridiculous, but it got them over even more. It's like the fuck.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that.
It's not like it wasn't. Yeah, you definitely couldn't do that now. But it wasn't like. It wasn't they were doing it for the sake of doing it.
No,
it wasn't,
there was a reason.
Well, this is a good idea. It's like no, we're going to put this bit through a table. It's like, oh, did they just do that? Holy shit, fuck, what the fuck?
And it's like JR, every time he does it, it's like Bubba Ray like just stared into space just after he's done it. It's like, that orgasmic stare from Bubba Ray. It's like, it's just, yeah, I think when you think of the Dudleys, they've got to be in a list of any tag team. I totally agree with you in terms of like Matt and Jeff and Edge and Christian. They've got to be in together, but I just think they did it across many different companies. Matt and Jeff and Edge and Christian,
not so much,
and that's the reason. That's the primary reason why Edge and Christian especially aren't on my list. And obviously, it's like I was going back in time and fucking hated them. So but yeah, Dudley's for me top tag team, and they should be in anybody's list. Again, I think you said it as well. It's Mount Rushmore type thing in terms of tag team as well. I think it's they're in the discussion as well.
I love the justification, John. Love the justification.
Love it.
Love it. Look at
Merchandise
the
coming soon.
numbers, Mason. Look at the numbers. 23 time tag champs in all of those fucking. Oh,
It's
just
crazy, right?
fucking hell.
And their
I,
solo
I,
runs were well. I mean, Bubba Ray's was good. Billy Ray's a great solo character. But yeah, their tag team work is just impeccable.
I haven't seen much of their New Japan stuff, but I'd like to go and watch some of their New Japan matches because I'm just trying to think about who would have been around in that sort of
Hmm.
period when they were actually there. I'd love to watch some of their matches over there because they would have had to be like some big, like, you know what I mean, like big beefy gaijin boys, you having to come in and beat the fuck out of everybody, wouldn't they? So like it would be good fun to see who they actually wrestled over there.
I think what we've got planned as well, again, a peek behind the curtain for all our listeners here. So we're doing obviously top
Mm-hmm.
10 lists, etc. But me and Hoxie have been talking as well, and we're potentially going to be doing deep dives into individual wrestlers. So, for example, the Dudleys, we could be looking at top 10 moments of the Dudleys' career. So that's something we could potentially do in the future as well. So just again, that's stuff that we're considering in the future. If that's something you're interested in hearing, again, let us know via email, on Twitter, etc. So sorry, Toxie, yeah, I'm just peeking
No,
behind the curtain.
it's yeah. There's lots of there's lots of ways in which we can go down the top 10 things. So there's lots in the pipeline. There's lots in
Mm-hmm.
the pipeline.
It's
I'm
exciting.
excited. Yeah, very excited. Be good fun.
Cool,
Really good
that's my
fun.
number 3. So over to you for your number 3 now, I believe.
So my number 3, just absolutely just joins perfectly with from my number 4, is the Midnight Express. Bobby Eaton, Dennis Conrad, Sweet Stan Lane, whichever way you want to look at it. I know we've had this,
Yeah.
you've had this before. Jim Cornette is the difference maker for me. Bobby Eaton is easily, easily one of the greatest wrestlers to ever put on a pair of boots. He was unbelievable. Nobody realizes how good. I'd say nobody. He's slept on. He's really underrated as a worker. When you watch what he used to do and how he used to do it, like the knee drop from the top, just you could kill a motherfucker easily doing that, and he wouldn't even touch them. It'll be just like getting a brush across your head. You know, just unreal worker. Um, they've left a lasting effect on the business. Um, we talk about you mentioned earlier on the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express feud, one of the best tag team feuds in history.
Yep.
Not with those guys, like, oh, they had the best tag team feud with each other, like genuinely one of the best tag team feuds ever.
Yep.
The amount of money that those guys made with those feuds, the amount of bums they put in seats, the amount of houses they sold out, the amount of people that they got invested in that feud was unfathomable. Um, just so good. Best heel tag team ever, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Midnight
Yep.
Express, and majority of it was because of Jim Cornette on the mic. His promo work in the studio with JCP on their weekly shows or whatever, and they just give him a mic in an arena or whatever. The amount of times people's try to kill him, stab him, beat him, jump the rail, try to beat him up. Like he had the tennis racket for two reasons: one, to look like a prick, and two, to defend himself from people who were trying to kill him.
Yeah.
That's how much heat he had. It's not like, oh, boo you, laughing like, oh, look, we like to boo him like they do now. It's like, I want to stab you. I want to kill
I
you.
want to kill you. Yep.
Like police escorts to the ring, police escorts away. Like he would position himself like towards the exit of the arena when the match finished, so we could just get the belts and run. That's how much thought process they had to like put into this stuff. Just an amazing tag team, amazing workers, unbelievable tag team. You touched on it earlier on, like the scaffold match with the Road Warriors at '86.
Mm-hmm.
Historic moment in Jim Crockett promotion history, historic moment in wrestling. Best tag team, heel tag team ever.
Yeah.
I don't think it's close. And like I said, that run and some of the other guys in which they had that the feud with, just Oh, just so good, so good. Yeah, I can't put them over enough as workers and as what they did with like for the business as well.
Yep,
Just amazing, amazing.
so good.
Got to be top three. Got to be top three. Easy.
Again, mine's was. I probably could have, but I know I fine well I could have had mine up further on the list. It's just, as we
Yeah.
say all the time, it's a case of you could ask us tomorrow and the list would look completely different. And I'm sure you guys listening at home would also have that as well.
I mean, my list looked a lot different 3 hours ago. Never mind tomorrow or yesterday or whatever. It's just an unbelievable difference. So yeah,
So good.
this is like I said to, earlier on at the start of the episode. It's been so tough for me because I do love like tag team wrestling and I love the history of wrestling. And there's guys on here that I should have maybe done in a different way, like a different order. But there's guys on here that I think, oh my god, should they have put them on there? But no,
Yeah,
I'm happy. I'm okay. I'm happy, John. I'm content with my list.
I love it.
Maybe, maybe.
Maybe for now. Right, so Hoxie's number 3 is The Midnight Express. Makes absolute sense to me. So Hoxie, we're getting to the business end now. You're number 2.
My number 2 is the Road Warriors.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
What a rush. Animal and Hawk, Legion of Doom, whichever way you want to fucking take it. Just they coined the Road Warrior pop has came from these guys, like the meaning to be actually over and to get a reaction as big as what you do get in wrestling. It's used today, 20, 30 years down the line. Their look, the shoulder pads and the face paint, two jacked up dudes, just absolutely like monster, shouting at the microphone at the top of their voice. Tell them how, just like unbelievable promos. A lot of the time, make much sense. They looked they looked good when they were doing it. You know what I mean? Like they were just unbelievable. Like taking that look from like the Mad Max thing and just making themselves just this next level crazy tag team. Like beast mode, just absolute beast mode. They transcended wrestling. They sort of went to like later on in their career, like when the WWF sort of got hold of them in that early '90s period. They sort of transcended wrestling. They went into like this other dimension of like notoriety within the world. Just their look. That is it. Wembley when they come down on the bikes, like on the Harleys before it takes them 10 minutes to get changed to get their entrance gear off. Like, and back in the day, so I'm told it's very hard to find out about it now, but they used to use War Pigs. Was it War Pigs or Iron Man or whatever as an entrance theme?
Yep.
And that's where the Road Warrior pop came from, like that black tune, just the arena, and that was it. Just it's just so good, so good. Like multi-time, obviously tag champs wherever they went. They had a really long the stuff they did in Japan as like those because there were some big old boys in Japan in the sort of mid-90s as well, and a lot of the stuff that they used to do when they go over there in the mid-80s as well, like all Japan. They were some big boys like Tenru and Jumbo Tsuruta and that having these tag matches with them, and over there it was still a shoot to them. They didn't want to lose. The Japanese guys did not want to lose to any of the Gaijins. Fuck that.
No.
So to go over there and do what they did and have those matches probably took 10 years off their careers or their lives doing that sort of stuff. But they went over there and they made a load of money, made a big name for themselves, and came back bigger and better and meaner. And I just so good, so good. You look like later on as well. They came back.
Yep.
And obviously had the feud with the New Age Outlaws.
They did
that match, and
great match.
Great match, yeah, for the time as well,
Yeah.
and sort of like the time in their career. Yeah, I said earlier on about the Steiners that these first memories of watching wrestling. The Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, obviously Legion of Doom in the WWF, coming out with all of their stuff on, just looking like that. I was like, who? I didn't say obviously this when I was a little kid, but I was like, Is this? You know what I mean? That's probably what I would have said,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in that voice as well. So just amazing. They like I said, they're never gonna go down as like some of the whatever. Like I don't give a shit. That it's not that kind of not that kind of team. And that Doomsday Device finish, Jesus, like it's not far from the truth, really, in the name.
Yeah.
Just amazing team, and just for what they mean to me and what I feel about tag team wrestling. And when we had this discussion about, oh, we'll do the like the top 10 greatest tag teams, they were the first like thing to pop into my brain. So I was like that's what I went to straight away. So they've got to be there. And the more and more I looked at the list, and the more I looked at these people, the more and more I was like, well, they're going to go there. Okay, no, they're not better than them. They're not better than them. They're not better than them for me. And they stuck at number 2 all the way through, pretty much. So yeah,
Wow.
for me, Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, just because of like what they mean to me and sort of the time in which I found them. Really, they've stuck with me forever, and they are one of the most badass teams out.
Yep.
Anyway, AWA, NWA, WCW, WWF, like all Japan, back in New Japan, whatever, just badass, badass, badass.
Great points from Hoxie. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm shocked that it's not your number one. So I've genuinely got no fucking clue what your number one is. So I'm really, really intrigued here. So that's
Yeah,
really, really cool. Okay, my number 2
tell
is
them shit.
Let me tell you something, brother. My number 2 is a team that's already been mentioned, and remember, this is for me. It's FTR or the Revival.
Yeah.
Quite
I'm going to
simply.
be annoyed with myself they didn't come higher. Sorry, mate. I'm going to be annoyed with myself I didn't put them higher. Go on. Go on.
For me, the best tag team in wrestling today, and it's not even a conversation. Not even.
Yeah.
It is a throwback to all the legendary teams that we've spoke about in this list so far. Proper tag team psychology, you know, in terms of observing the rules of tag team wrestling, you know, holding the tag rope when they're getting tags, you know, it's just simple, beautiful stuff in terms of tag team wrestling. And, you know, for those that aren't a fan of wrestling, hearing me say like beautiful tag team wrestling, you've just got to appreciate, and again, to sound like Kenny Omega, you've got to appreciate the art of it, and it's just different gravy, man. It's just so good. The matches with the Briscoes was the first one that came into my head. You know, it's just, and what's really sad is that for as good as FTR is, you know, you're only as good as your dance partner. I'm sure that's a phrase that's used in wrestling a lot, and it's going to be really sad the fact we're never going to see the Briscoes and FTR fight again, just because it's so good, it's so believable, it's so visceral, it's so feral. It's just, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just so good. Then if you go back to when they first appeared in like WWE and NXT, the American Alpha, I've never sort of marked out in terms of tag team wrestling like that. That's probably the first time in a long time that I've been like, holy shit, this is so good. And you know, Chad Gable, and he's insane just now, and that's a different story, a different podcast as well, talking about Chad Gable and how he should be like not main event, but certainly mid upper card, like Intercontinental Champion type Chad Gable, just different class. But FTR for me is just so good in terms of tag team wrestling. As I said during your sort of spot with them, I think they're being wasted in AEW. They should be a focal point in any tag team division in the modern day wrestling. And again, I think I've used this before. I used it with Brock Lesnar in episode 1. You could lift them up and put them in any era, and they'd be absolute superstars. Just they've got the look, they've got the hard hitting style, they can wrestle, and like you say, like individually they're immense. Now, granted, there's one or two personal issues, you know, guns, etc., shall we say? But you know, if you just focus on the wrestling side of it, then I just don't think you can go much further past FTR at the moment. So yeah, they're my number 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, I became very, very passionate there.
No,
so like,
no. That's what we want. That's what we want.
So
I'm annoyed with myself that I didn't put them any higher on my list. But if this was 10 years down the line, they would be probably where you're talking about them
Yeah,
now. To be honest,
yeah,
they're going to be up there easy. The other guys, they're me on this list. I've sort of they've got the nostalgia probably thing for me rather than
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like net, like there's huge tag teams that I took off my list
yeah.
just to get them on, if you know what I mean. Who in any normal run of the mill would have made it on here anyway. So yeah, I love them.
They're
I
so good.
love them. They're phenomenal. I need to go back and watch the American Alpha match. Actually, I haven't seen it probably since then, or maybe not long after
Thing,
that. I
it's not
probably
even one
rewatched
though,
it.
is it? Is it not like three? There's like three
Yeah,
matches that are just. It's like a rubber match as well. It's
yeah.
so
It's the
so good.
last one is the biggie. It's before American Alpha off to the main roster. I think.
I'm going to
I
be honest
think.
with you. See if Jason Jordan didn't get injured, I
Hmm.
reckon that American Alpha in years in the future would have been on this sort of list because again,
Yes.
technical in
Yes. Yes.
terms of
Yes. Yes.
Chad
Yes.
Gable, Jason Jordan was the powerhouse, but he was so quick. Again, to quote JR, quicker than a hiccup. But
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, injuries to Jason Jordan. Kurt Angle's son apparently. You know, uh, it's just unreal. But Hoxie mentioned, we've had major lists and we've had to remove people. But what we have on Mark out of 10 every time we do a top 10 list is we have an honourable mention. So someone that should be on a list, but we couldn't find a way of fitting them in. So this is just a cheap way of us getting to put in one extra person into a top 10 list, and we can only have one of them. Okay,
Can I
so
not put 9 on mine? Can I
no,
put 9
unfortunately
in the
not.
on? Ah,
See, I've got to be strict with you, Hoxie, because to be honest, I could have put two in here at the same time, just from what we've said in the past. But my honourable mention are the Hardy Boys. They gave us the high flying. Again, I'm not going to go through everything I've got on my list here, but because
yeah.
you've basically said it already. But they gave us the high flying, almost dangerous. You could say that we're now accustomed to. So I would say they're probably the precursor to some of the dangerous shit that we see nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, but they are the masters of the ladder match. Sorry, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. When you think of ladders, I automatically think of the Hardy Boys. It's just they were 1/3, 33% of the major reboom of tag team wrestling, and that's from obviously WrestleMania 17, the TLC matches, etc. Dudley's, Edge and Christian. They were just cool. Like you say, Jeff Hardy got the women screaming. Matt Hardy had a great mind for the business. Like you say, he was the first internet person, the internet that got brought back to wrestling. And then, they had the additional bonus of like Lita as well. They made Team Extreme. It was genius. Lita was a star as well. Obviously, in later life, they both had their issues, their well documented issues. But for me, they're well deserving of a mention in any like tag team list as well. And like I say, this could have been with Edge and Christian as well, but I was fearful of getting chokeslammed by Hoxie if I had two in my honourable mentions. So I've just went with the Hardy Boys, just pipping Edge and Christian to the honourable mention spot.
My honourable mention, and this is going to be my shake moment, John Shields. This is going to be
Right.
the shake moment. None of this conversation that we're having now would be happening if it wasn't for these guys. So my honourable mention is to the Fabulous Kangaroos. Okay, so the Fabulous Kangaroos were the team of the original man of 1,000 holds, Australian wrestler, with another fellow Australian wrestler called Roy Heffernan, who started wrestling in the mid 50s as the Fabulous Kangaroos, and they were the first ever true, real tag team in history. They were the first people to bring tag team wrestling to people and to the paying public and introduced it into wrestling basically throughout the 50s and the 60s. They would have matches before that where there'd be like maybe two guys would do whatever, but it was like different rules, if you know what I mean. So they basically popularized what tag team wrestling is today throughout that 50s and 60s period. Al Costello will go down probably as the greatest Australian wrestler of all time as well for what he did for the business and for the industry. But these Fabulous Kangaroos, when you look back at what they did, the history of the business and what they brought and where they started, basically. They started tag team wrestling as an official tag team. The history of the Fabulous, it's one of the worst names ever. They went all in with the Australian thing. I think they even used once in Matilda as the fucking entrance music, which is just ridiculous. Like boomerangs and the whole 9 yards. But like I said, there would not be tag team wrestling as we know it if it wasn't for these guys back in the 50s who kicked it all off. So for that, they have to be my honourable mention. I like to know where this all come from. Like I said, say it again, I am a wrestler. I've been doing it for a very long time. I have a lot of respect for the business, and I like to know where the stuff came from. And when you sort of stumble across the Fabulous Kangaroos, there's a real big story. I think Al Snow has got a bit of a penchant for being the new stuff, because he started a tag team in the early 90s.
That's right,
called
with Sinclair, right?
the new Fabulous Kangaroos. So, and he was the new fucking Rockers, he was the new Wist Rockers, and he was the new Fabulous Kangaroos. So Arsenal's got a lot to answer for, bless him. But yeah, like I said, the Fabulous Kangaroos have got to be my honourable mention, just because we wouldn't be here today probably talking about it if it wasn't for those guys. They brought it to the fold. So yeah, there you go. History.
You could have offered me 100 guesses for £1,000,000, and I would never have came up with the Fabulous Kangaroos. That is
there you go.
Impeccable. Now, this is why I love doing Mark Out of 10. This is why I love talking about wrestling with Hoxie. Now, I am a fan. I've never taken a bump in my life, but Hoxie is a wrestler. He's very much a student of the game. He likes his wrestling history, and I think this is why we can have real life conversations about wrestling. It's like I can do it from the Mark or the wrestling fans' perspective, but he's a guy that's his knowledge of wrestling is impeccable. So I fair play to you. Fabulous Kangaroos. Never saw it coming. There we go.
There you go.
GG. Okay, so fucking hell. Genuinely, that's definitely the swerve of Mark Out of 10 so far. That's fucking incredible. Love it. Bro. Okay, so that is us down to number 2, and we've done our honourable mentions. So what we do now is we'll run through our top 10. I'll go first, Hoxie, if you don't mind. My number 10 were the Freebirds. Number 9 was the New Age Outlaws. Oh, you didn't know. Number 8 were the Rockers. Number 7 were the Hart Foundation. 6 were the Midnight Express. 5 were Tully and Arn. Number 4 were the Rock and Roll Express. Number 3 were those damn Dudleys. And number 2 were FTR or the Revival. And my honourable mention going to the Hardy Boys. Over to you, Mr. Hawks.
Number 10, FTR. Number 9, the Steiner Brothers. In at number 8, Tully and Arn, Brainbusters, Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Number 7, those damn Dudleys. Number 6, the Hardy Boys. Number 5, 4, Rock and Roll Express. 3, Midnight Express with Jim Cornette. 2, the Road Warriors. And my honourable mention, as just discussed, the Fabulous Kangaroos, mate.
Perfect. Right. Okay, I'm going to jump in and go to my number 1 because it's a team you've already mentioned. I'm intrigued to hear what your number 1 is. And my number 1 are the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom. What a rush indeed.
What a rush.
So, again, I'll just run through my sort of points just very, very quickly. So, Road Warriors, first introduced in Georgia Championship Wrestling, 1980s, and they started out with Precious Paul Ellering. Now, interestingly, Legion of Doom were actually a heel stable led by Ellering. You know this, I would imagine. So basically, Hawk and Animal were actually part of that, and they were alongside Jake the Snake and Matt Bourne, who was the original Doink the Clown. So that's a little side note. So Legion of Doom were in existence prior to them going to WWF. Basically, when they won their first tag team title, the NWA tag team title, it was through their debut year in 1983. So it's halfway through their debut year, which I think a lot of people forget about. They were rookies. They were green, but they just had that gimmick, right? It was just hard hitting.
All they needed to do was just throw clotheslines and power slams and do American football tackles. Like, they weren't going to have 25-minute matches. They were going to have
Didn't have
5-minute fights, basically, and that's what. Sometimes that's all you need, right?
That's it. Yep. Do you know why they weren't called the Road Warriors in WWF?
Probably because of something to do with like licensing and sort of intellectual property and that sort of thing.
No,
You're probably going to tell me wrong.
Yeah, there was too many characters with the name Warrior in there.
Oh, of course, of
Yeah, so
course.
that's
Yeah.
the only reason they weren't known as the Road Warriors in WWF. That's why they got the Legion of Doom, because obviously Paul Ellering was there anyway. So, but yeah, so I've had a few nice little tidbit of information tonight. I'm quite
Yes, you
impressed with my
have, mate. I
research.
do
There you
like
go.
it. Very good. Very good.
So yeah, they basically, their gimmick was just incredible, hard hitting. They just never looked back. They were the absolute dominant team, and like you said, the Road Warrior pop still referenced today. I'm just really gutted I was never in a crowd to experience the Road Warrior pop. I just think it would have been so good. Again, and it falls back to what I said at the very beginning. There's the longevity of the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom name. They've tried to revisit it numerous times. I mean, obviously after Hawk passed away, and it just didn't work. LOD,
2000 and all that sort
remember
of stuff.
Heidenreich?
Bras and Heidenreich, yeah.
It's
Bras
like,
to a bugger.
yeah, draws, exactly, yeah. But yeah, it never reached the same heights, and it never ever would. But for me, Legion of Doom, Road Warriors, the best tag team, hands down. And when like similar to you, you had them on your list straight away. They were my number one from the get go. They never moved from a number one position. They were always
Amazing.
locked in. Just incredible. And like I say, I only wish I was around, like, and had the ability, had the option to go to one of their matches live. I just think, the sort of goosebump moment is stuff that we always appreciate in wrestling. You talked about Edge return at Royal Rumble. I think a Road Warrior, what a rush would just be. I mean, even that, just us two doing it really, really badly. It's like, it's like just so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, my number one are the Road Warriors.
Amazing. I can't, what I mean? Like, number two for me, number one for you. It's there or thereabouts, isn't it? So, I love, like, I know I prefer the Road Warriors, but like that LOD, just like 15, 20,000 people chanting that all at the same time. It just gives me goosebumps, man. So good. There's so many matches I'm going to need to go and watch after talking about this. Just having a look at this list. It's just so good.
The thing is, it's when you get changes the names like that. Like, for example, Arn and Tully, right, going to the Brainbusters. It doesn't have that same sort of impact. They were still amazing, but the Legion of Doom just... it's still like they will
beast mode,
bite your face off. Yeah, it's like it's just so good. But yeah, that's the reason why. Right, okay, I'm intrigued now. I thought it was a lock that Road Warriors would have been your number one. So I'm really, really interested to see what your number one. So Hoxie, for Mark out of 10, episode 3, top 10 tag teams in wrestling. Your number one is...
Are you ready? It's DX.
Oh, okay.
So we obviously I've spoken a lot about my 19 that's on this fucking list. Like, not knock them off number one the whole way through this. I couldn't do it.
Wow.
That I know. So people say, well, DX were a stable or they were a whatever. No, they started as a tag team with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. With obviously China was managing, but it didn't become that stable until later on. They didn't have that stable with X-Pac and New Age Outlaws and stuff till later on. So the original 1997, and do you know when they debuted? This is going to blow your mind. Ooh. And I remember this. This will freak you out. I remember this. It was my 10th birthday.
Fuck.
August the 11th, 1997. It was when they debuted. I can remember it. Which is weird. Mad, but it was my birthday. So they embodied and they were the real list almost for that Attitude Era.
Yep.
They were the perfect like foil to the Hart Foundation at the time.
Yep.
And they really, really pushed on for that attitude. We know all the mad stuff that they said, all those crates, all those mad promos, all those really inappropriate stuff, like getting their asses out, and like, you know what I mean, Sean just being absolutely mad off his tits on whatever, allegedly. Um, just like the most, they were it was the perfect timing. It was the perfect characters for that time. They were the perfect foil for the Hart Foundation. So many memorable moments. The entrance music, the attitude that they brought, the presentation that they had, like the green and black X with all the merch, the t-shirts. They sort of changed the route of the wrestling business. They changed, and the suck it thing, the whole like cross chop thing. Just you talk about things that were happening in school that everybody knew.
Yep.
Like everybody knew what people still do the crotch chop now,
Yeah.
and like that was
In
from
wrestling.
that.
In
In,
wrestling.
in
Yeah.
wrestling, like, people do it in like in life. Like you see like people doing it like just IRL, like
I'm doing it now.
just yeah, just mad stuff. Like like they weren't running what like all these championships and titles and this that and the other, but they had that they had that drawing power. And obviously, Triple H and Shawn were I mean, Triple H not so much, but he obviously was, and this was one of the main reasons why he got there, is on the route to being one of the two of the biggest names in the industry. The DX thing, obviously, that we look at the Stone Cold passing of the torch with that championship with Michaels. The DX was the with Mike Tyson, and all these just mad stuff. Obviously, they were at the center of the screw job, which changed the business forever, which literally probably saved WWE, or at least and to save the wrestling industry really for that period of time. Obviously, Michaels went off and done what he needed to do with his issues and stuff, and they kept it sort of going with that stable. But they always came back and sort of had that moment where they had the DX, like the Shawn Michaels and Triple H tag runs later on, like WrestleMania. There was the where they were together. They had that triple threat with Cena, didn't they?
Yep.
And they were DX in the match, and then Shawn Michaels done the super kick on Triple H. Like
Yep.
that always. I love that spot. I love that storytelling sort of spot. You could take them anywhere. You could roll them out now. You could have Shawn Michaels and Triple H go out there with the fucking glow sticks and throw them in the crowd, and the green and black, and just they are, for me, like at that time, that period of time, and just memorable tag teams for me, and just making me love wrestling. And like I said, just with my mates watching these guys and doing the cross chops on each other and telling each other it's fucking just mad
So good.
stuff. Like it's all nostalgia, and it's all in the feels for me. And like I said, they had some amazing matches, and they had some really, really, really poignant big moments in wrestling. And it was at that time, like that 98, 97, 98, 99, that massive boom, that huge change in the business that came in. And Shawn Michaels and Triple H were the OGs, basically. So you see China was the manager, and Rick Rude as well. Can't forget Rick Rude. He was the only guy to show up on WWE Raw, WWF Raw, and WC Nitro on the same. One was pre-recorded.
Yep.
Great. Just incredible. August the 11th, 1997, on a Monday Night Raw, you get DX, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and China. Amazing. Love it.
It's all about
Number
the
one.
feels. All
Yeah,
about the feels.
that's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's not like, oh my god, they had all these titles, or oh my god, they had all these incredible matches, and blah 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 blah. It's just the way they made me feel. That's all it was.
I'm not gonna lie to you. It's
We won't-
annoyed me.
we
It
won't-
has annoyed
we
me that you're
won't-
number one is DX simply because I didn't even think about putting them on as my number one. It's fucking annoyed me.
I was waiting for you to be like all the way through this. I was waiting for you to be like, oh, yeah, it's DX. DX. I was like, when the fuck's DX coming up? And then like when you got on it, I was like, oh my god, they're not going to be on this list. Holy shit! And then I started second guessing myself. I was thinking, hold on a minute, like, are they really that much of a big deal? But to me,
you're absolutely right.
So
Yeah.
fuck it. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. They changed the direction of the Monday Night Wars 100%. You know,
Yeah.
like brilliant moments in terms of wrestling history. You know, invading WCW in the tank. You know, shit like that.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. And yeah, you've annoyed me with the fact they're on your list and they're not on mine. Fuck you, Hoxie. Fuck you.
I think I'm going to win again.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think both lists have been solid. I think the justifications we've put across are great. And, you know, I said at the beginning it was difficult because we've been in a time where tag team wrestling wasn't prevalent to, like, in the wrestling industry. But I think we've done all right in our 10 picks plus our honourable mention. And as you said, there's so many tag teams that we could have included on there. So yeah.
I broke the rules and put the Hardys, the Dudleys, and the E&C as one. Fuck it. Fuck this. I'm going to do my list again. Fuck it. Come back in 5 minutes.
It doesn't matter.
Nah, I'm
nice.
happy. It's been fun, mate. This has been a good one.
I've enjoyed this one.
It was stressful trying to pick the 10. Jesus. It was stressful, but I've definitely enjoyed it, and I've definitely enjoyed your list this week as well, mate. Cheers. We haven't fallen out.
We haven't fallen
out. I'm amazed that some are on and some aren't. But it's not like we haven't, like, there hasn't been a fuck off moment, which is always nice. Because we don't really falling out all the time, do we?
Yeah. Third time lucky, that's what happens. That's what happens. You know, HBK, Randy Orton, and I think tag team. That's where we are. Maybe we're destined to be a tag team, Hoxie. Who knows?
There you go. There you go.
Right, so ladies and gents, we have got our top 10 of tag teams in wrestling. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? What teams do you have in your top 10? Let us know by emailing us at wrestlemark10@gmail.com, tweeting us at mark_out of 10, or commenting on our YouTube channel, which is also mark out of 10. If you like the podcast, as ever, give us a 5-star rating, like it on YouTube. Make sure you sub to YouTube as well. It doesn't cost you anything, and it'd just be nice to get more subs on YouTube. And also, just to help the podcast grow, make sure you share it to at least one person that would like to listen to the dulcet tones of Hoxie and Shields. All of it helps us grow the podcast, as I say. Next week's episode, okay, we're going to reveal it. We've listened to the Market of 10 audience, and we are going to reveal next week's episode is going to be the top 10 female wrestlers. This is going to be an interesting one, I think. From me, Shields.
10 female wrestlers.
Top 10 female wrestlers is going to be a good one. So from me, Shields, thank you very much for listening, and over to you, Hoxie.
Thank you very much, guys. Just to reiterate what Shields has just said, just share with one person. If one person listens, they can tell their friend, they tell their friend, and that's how it all works. Like, we're not marketing this, we're not throwing this on, we're not doing paid ads or anything like that. It's all word of mouth, and you guys are the best marketing we can have. So just go and tell your mates, share with one person. I've had a really good time on this episode, mate. I hope everyone who's listening is going to have a really good time as well. Just get involved. Give us your yeses and your nos and your lists, and we will compare. So thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll catch you on the next